I'd like to say that the words I've got here were drafted by a colleague of mine who was, I would say, scared to be here today, felt they were unable to, I would not be safe because it would risk their immigration status. And I'd really just like us to pause and reflect on that, that's where we are right now, is that a person of colour who is here to provide education to students in this country feels that they cannot safely attend a legitimate and peaceful protest because they would risk their visa. So I'm here from Leeds University UCU, which is the University and College Union, and we represent obviously academic staff and also professional staff such as librarians, IT professionals, administrators and so on, people with whom our education service simply couldn't function. And I'd really like to start by sending our love to all of you, everybody who is here today, physically, online, mentally or spiritual. It's really moving. Actually, I'm really impressed by the size of the crowd today and the way that we as a community have come together to fight this bill. It shows that collective action is resistance. Okay. And we want to particularly recognize community advocates, grassroots organizations, and individuals who continuously do the unpaid, invisible, and often unrecognized labor of uplifting and supporting our communities. And that's especially those who come from racially minoritized, migrant, Roma and traveler, non-binary, lower income backgrounds and people with disabilities. So if this is approved, this bill will have a massive disproportionate effect on already marginalized communities. As a union in the education sector, we have a responsibility. Am I getting some feedback here? Okay. Responsibility to speak up in support of our students, our colleagues, and the wider community. If this is passed, this bill will affect our ability as union members to strike and fight for better and just treatment within our working environments. In 2018, we saw the largest and longest strike action in the history of UK higher and further education in the UK. We took strike action to fight for our pensions. During these strikes, our non-EU members were not allowed to strike because their immigration status could be revoked. Stemming from that strike action, we fought and won for our migrant members to have the right to strike. And from this fight, we became the first union in the UK to formally recognise migrants as a category to protect and to put in place a migrant committee to support our migrant members. If this bill had been law during our strike in 2018, we might not have been able to achieve these wins. We're still fighting. We're still fighting against casualisation in the HE sector because so many of our members are precariously employed. And if you're a student, are you aware that the person teaching you may not know whether or not they're going to have a job in September because so many of our staff are on short-term, fixed-term, hourly paid contracts. We're fighting against the gender pay gap. We're fighting against excessive workload, and we're still fighting for our pensions. Yeah. According to UCU statistics, the average university employee works 50 hours a week. This does not include the unpaid emotional labour that many women, and when I say women, I include our trans siblings. that many women, especially black and women of colour, do to support vulnerable students and early career colleagues. And again, it's black women, women of colour, migrant members that are most likely to be employed on those precarious contracts and to have little job security. Similarly, our efforts to decolonise practices within the university and the curriculum, and our fight to tackle institutional racism often go unrecognised. And all of this happens whilst black colleagues and colleagues of colour are paid less than white colleagues. Staff pay has fallen by around 20% in real terms over the past decade. These numbers are worse for women, especially black and women of colour. And last year, a report from the BBC showed that 86% of staff in Russell Group universities are white, with only 1% black. The report also demonstrated that whilst white women are paid 15% less than a white man, black and Asian women are paid 39% and 22% less than a white man. There are only 26 black women professors in the UK, and over a 3-year period, just 1.2% of the almost 20,000 studentships awarded by all the UK research councils went to black or mixed race students, and only 30 of those were from a black Caribbean background. Those statistics are dire. That shows the level of inequality in our university system. And I've already pointed out that I'm standing here as a white woman speaking on behalf of a colleague of colour who was afraid to be here. So these structural inequalities are also reflected in our student body. Only 17.6% of home EU students are BME, whilst there's a 12% BME attainment gap. A recent University of Leeds report shows that students from various minority groups, including students with disabilities, students from black and minority ethnic backgrounds, LGBT plus students, and mature students drop out at much higher rates than their peers. We must understand these numbers not as the cause of inequality, but as symptoms of sexism and institutional racism in our universities. Until these numbers no longer exist, we will continue to be vocal and to take strike action, which will involve protest. And if you saw our strikes in 2018, in 2019, 2020, and you saw our picket lines and our rallies on the Parkinson steps, you will have seen how vocal, how lively our protests are. And we need that. We need that to publicise the causes that we're fighting for. And that's what this bill would destroy. It would prohibit. We would not be able to have those rallies. We would not be able to have a band playing to lift our morale, to draw attention to the fight that the causes that we're fighting for. We are here, I am here on behalf of UCU Leeds to show our solidarity to everyone here, but especially to those migrant students and colleagues who are fearful of having their immigration status weaponized. We are here We at UCU are here for students and staff who do not feel heard or seen, who've been made invisible and made to suffer because of their race, gender, immigration status, religion, sexuality, mental health, disability, or chronic illness. We believe in the power of collective action. We're here for the ones coming behind us, for future generations, because our liberation is your liberation, and that's why we have to fight this bill.